Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. We're here for some post-match reaction after our final away game, penultimate Premier League game, final midweek game of the season. It's finished Southampton 1, Liverpool 2. Southampton taking the lead early on in the first half. Liverpool forced to battle their way back into it through goals from Takumi Minamino, of all people, and Joel Matip in the second half to put us back ahead. And then we held out for the final 20, 30 minutes or so to set up some potential final day drama. Who knows? We'll get onto that in a few days' time, I'm sure. But for post-match reaction, I'm joined by Charlie, Drew, and James. Charlie, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, man. It was a bit of a nervy game, but I never really felt like we were going to lose it, to be fair. I thought we were always going to get that second goal, and we did. So, yeah, doing good.
And Drew, how are you doing? You're looking happy. The beard's coming back in full force by the looks of it.
Yeah, I want a big finish to the end of the season. So we'll see if it brings any luck. But similar to Charlie, I never felt like the game was in any doubt. Southampton just kind of rolled over and, on to the last day of the season and, hopefully a Premier League title.
And James, I know you were the same as me. You didn't like that very much, did you?
I didn't. There's just something about it that didn't feel like it was going to go our way. And I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy it's done. I'm happy it's out of the way with. But it just felt very Brendan Rodgers-y. I was saying to Louis before we went live. When the ball just used to get passed around, and there was nothing really penetrating and clear-cut opportunities. We're having all these shots from the edge of the box, and yeah, I'm just pleased it's done, mate. I'm just pleased it's all over with.
I'll stick with you on that one quickly because, I had the same sort of feeling. I mean, we must have had about 40. There was 23 crosses in the first half, so I imagine we breached 40 by the end of the game. The Joel Matip goal just seemingly came out of nowhere, didn't it? And it was in super slow motion, the way that the ball just perfectly went beyond McCarthy's grasp. I mean,
it was a FIFA goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When someone presses the wrong button and suddenly it lobs off their head and it goes in and the keeper dives and you're like, well, why didn't he just stand there and catch it? It was a complete FIFA goal.
Yeah.
There is no way that should have ever gone in a million years, but Alex McCarthy just got excited and dived. So they're just standing and catching it. But I'll take it. It's done. It's over. We go down to the final day.
So, Charlie, I know that you missed the first 15 minutes or so of that game, but the rest of the first half that you saw, what did you make of the Liverpool performance?
It was, I don't know, it was very, not rushed, if that makes sense. I felt like there wasn't really any urgency there. I do think when we went 1-0 down, though, we changed and, started playing a bit more like Liverpool. But the thing is, you can't expect the typical Liverpool because it wasn't a typical Liverpool. Yes, all these players are trained the exact same way by the same people. They train with the same players, but, it's a completely different side, a different skill set that everybody has. And it was clear to see in that game. I'm sure we'll go on to individual players, but I don't think the two young midfielders and James Milner, who doesn't really have the legs anymore to properly run that midfield how he should. But the cameo we saw from Jones and Elliott, I thought he played okay. I don't want to see them in a midfield, in a them two advanced midfield roles together again. But, they're decent little players. But, Takumi Minamino, I've been really impressed with him. Just saw a stat here. He's taken 11 shots on target this season and he's got 11 goals. So, absolutely deadly. Hell. And I do think that he's the one player we shouldn't get rid of. But I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit later.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll definitely, because there were so many changes in that team. We'll definitely have a look at some of those changes. Drew, after that goal, I must admit, I started to doubts crept in. I start to think this is Crystal Palace or something all over again. It's slipping away, even though it's so unlikely anyway. But I know you're always the calmest man, if you were in Liverpool anyway, but in America as a Liverpool fan, what did you make of it? Because even though I was losing out, I still felt like we were absolutely in control. I mean, the possession stats tell you that. And I thought we played relatively well. It just no real clear-cut chances came until Minamino's goal.
Yeah, it was a bit odd for me because I was screaming I was at the pub, not screaming, but I was like, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul. And when it even went to VAR, I was just like, how did they not bring that back? That was a clear foul on Jota. And I just didn't understand that, but I was like, all right, well, they messed up and we'll just have to move on with the game. It's not the first time VAR has screwed up this season. So, and I don't think Southampton really had another chance that game, like a clear cut chance. And that's for me where, like, even at that point, I think the whole game, it was like 75% possession to Liverpool. So it just, like, I felt like our passing was pretty good. Like, we didn't have the lethal clear-cut chances every time we got the ball, but we were getting enough opportunities where it just seemed like we'll get it over the line. It felt weird. Like, it didn't seem like a game where either side was really gunning for it. It just kind of seemed like almost like a training exercise where, like, we just see it out at the end of the day. And it was kind of interesting to see Southampton's fans be the ones really, like, with 15 minutes left going like, what are you doing? You're only you're only down a goal. And just showed like the lack of belief in Southampton's team. And, we're just going to get it. We're going to get it done. And that's what we did.
Speaking of that refereeing decisions, I think there was a lot of people saying that Martin Atkinson's performance wasn't great, James, but I wasn't particularly surprised that wasn't pulled back.
Is it the same phase of play? I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Is it all within the same phase of play? And it was one pass away from that counter-attack. So it kind of is the same phase of play. But Martin Atkinson retires that might have been his last ever game. You don't care. He's not a fan of either club or anything like that. I would never say he's a biased referee. I don't think he's ever been that way. I just would never say he was a great referee. I think he misses too many things. It was non-surprising, and in classic Liverpool way, it is never simple, ever, when it comes down to important times.
No, absolutely. I mean, just quickly, Charlie, not really Liverpool related, but Hyla made a shocking discovery that Martin Atkinson, once he retires, is going to go into a coaching role for new referees. I mean, there's very few referees in this league that anyone likes, and to have those same people training the next generation, it doesn't spell good for the future, does it?
No, there's two competent referees in this league, Michael Oliver, and I don't know what the other guy's name is, but he come from the Championship a few years ago. He's like a young one. Completely forgot his name. I don't think he referees every single match week, but them two are the only good referees in this league. Buzzing Martin Atkinson's retired. Buzzing that Mike Dean's retired. Even though Mike Dean, I have always rated below. I actually don't think he's that bad of a referee compared to a lot of people. I just think he's very theatrical, which a lot of people don't like. John Moss, Paul Tierney need to go next. Who else? There's a list as long as my arm of referees that need to leave this league immediately, because I've always said I would rather constant bad decisions than a bad decision every now and again, because it shows that you're rubbish. But when you're given certain things, like, how aren't you given that as a foul? But I guarantee you, in the next game, he gives that as a foul if it happens again. He was the referee for the Divock Origi one in the season we lost the league against Manchester United. When that foul happened and Rashford went up and scored on the counter attack. yeah, let's just say that it's great for the Premier League that he's retiring. I don't know what you do to coach a referee, because it seems like you just have to not know
Easy.
football. Yeah, it just seems like you have to not know anything about football to be a referee. You don't even have to be fit. Look at John Moss. He's about 50 yards behind the ball every single time. And he's...
But they passed really stringent fitness tests.
Yeah, and John Moss, I'm sure he'll say himself, he is not healthy. He is a chunky guy, and as a chunky guy, I'll say that he's on my level. But yeah, it's... Look, we all know the referee system needs massively changed in the UK. It's never going to happen, unfortunately. But yeah, it is what it is. But thankfully, Martin Atkinson's retiring.
But the problem with the referee system is the people who audit the referees are the referees. So there's no accountability to anyone other than their mates.
Yeah.
And until the FA grow some balls and go, we're going to bring in this external panel to moderate our referees. And if you're not good enough, you don't get demoted to the championship and we just dilute the quality. You're going to not referee. That's how it improves. You know, bring in experts, bring in externals. But in any walk of life, in any business, if you self-moderate, it is never successful. Self-moderation is never successful.
I think a good point for this as well is when you look at, the other top 5 leagues, how many instances do you see that VAR is, a massive debate? Maybe 2 or 3 times a season that, there's a decision that VAR's maybe got wrong or, they haven't looked at. You get them 3 or 4 times every single week in the Premier League. It's a normal occurrence, and I have always said VAR is never the issue. It is the people running VAR. The referees are not up to the standard that the best league in the world should be doing it. And we see in the Champions League too. Yes, every league referees differently. So, where we're expecting fouls, they're not giving them. Or, for instance, in the Spanish league where they're giving fouls when we don't think it's a foul. But major decisions very, very rarely go against people in the, they get wronged in the Champions League, and it's proof. And I know he said when he didn't go to the World Cup, it had no reason to do with the standard of refereeing, why no English referees went to the World Cup. It clearly did. Like, it clearly did. The referees are rubbish, and that's another point. But VAR is a massive issue, and it's not because of VAR, it's because of the current crop of referees who are in charge of it. And I've always been behind either referees wearing a mic or referees doing a post-match interview. One of them two. I don't care what they choose, but as fans, we need more clarification as to why they have given that decision.
There needs to be a mic straight away. I'm bang on for the mic, and I'm really behind the idea that a VAR ref is not a match ref. They are different skill sets. Looking at something on a television screen, analysing it on a computer is not the same as looking at it live and being able to make split decisions. You need to train in 2 different ways. VAR refs and actual referees need to be different, and there needs to be radio communication between them. Like rugby, it's not going to end up in riots. I mean, people just need to calm down. If people can hear it, yes, you'll get boos and stuff like that, but that's it.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, final point on that. Yeah. I mean, final point on that. I completely agree with what you said about the way that they're self-governed, Mike Riley, and then it's just mates race, isn't it? And, on BT Sport, you've got bloody Peter Walton, that every refereeing decision, they go to Peter Walton asking if they got it right. How many times has he disagreed with the referees on the field when we all know that it's clearly not right? So, yeah, there definitely needs to be somebody external looking in on that, and some of the things you've said there definitely sound like they should be put in place. But if anyone's watching, then please do take notes. We'll go into some player performances, but first of all, thank you to everybody who is tuning in, watching, and getting involved in the comments. Please do like the video, and please do subscribe to the channel as well for all of your Liverpool content. Especially ahead of the Champions League final next week. We've got loads lined up, and it should be a very exciting in-depth build-up during the week. Drew, coming to you, which player should we start with first? Gomez, a person who on this channel has caused controversy with some of our watchers, Bojack I'm talking about mainly, but he's grown into it, the right back position, hasn't he? We always knew that was a position that he could play. When he came in at certain periods this season, it looked like he was a bit out of his depth, but recently, especially against Newcastle, he really seemed to have improved his crossing. He was getting forward so much. He's definitely gotten better. So let's talk about his performance and then also the potential injury that he sustained at the end of the first half as well.
Yeah, I think for a center back who isn't playing consistently to be thrown in on the odd game at right back, he's done a fine job. Like, covering for Trent is not an easy task, and clearly that's why we sent blanking on his name, the Welshman out on loan.
Nico Williams.
There we go, Nico Williams. But Gomez is pretty much our only reliable backup to Trent, and he's done a good job. I think for the goal, there's probably question about showing him in on the inside, but I think when Milner took over and the deflections what caused the goal, I think between them, probably you could put the blame on Gomez and Milner for that. But other than that, I think for someone who's not playing consistently and especially in his preferred role to come in as backup for Trent, he's done more than a capable job. And, thankfully there's only 2 games left, and hopefully we wouldn't need to call on Gomez to step up again, but it's still not great to see him get injured and come off the pitch. Hopefully it's nothing that would keep him out for long term, because I don't know if he'd stay around with Liverpool for one more season or not, but I certainly don't mind him in the squad, but I don't want to see him keep picking up injuries and always fighting for fitness.
Absolutely. And James, talk about James Milner briefly, a player who many feel is very, very close to the end of his tenancy with Liverpool. Some disappointing performances this year, especially when partnered up with the likes of Henderson. But today, showing some of his other characteristics, his versatility, starting in the number 6 and then dropping into right back when Gomez went off. How did you rate his overall performance today?
They were saying on commentary, Milner's coming in to coerce the kids and keep everything in place. And then you're looking, there's Bobby Firmino, there's Joel Matip, there's Alisson, there's Tomiskas, who's a first teamer. So he was just another one of our rotation players really in the mix. Yeah, the central midfield. I'm a big fan of Milner. I just think he goes in and makes some clumsy challenges, a bit like when Paul Scholes used to tackle.
Because we've done a good job. We've done a good job of not giving Ward-Prowse a chance, and then bloody Milner comes flying in, and suddenly he's lining it up from 40 yards.
But this is the thing. I think does he still have the legs? Yeah, he's probably still one of the fittest in the squad. It's not like he's running out of gas. Does he still have the sharpness? Not quite sure. I think he needs to be playing more games to keep himself match sharp, because I don't think he can jump in and be match sharp. And I think that's probably where he's lacking, which is why he's like a millisecond off the pace and stuff like that, especially at the top level. But overall, good performance, showing his versatility, moving around. Instead of a 7 out of 10, he's a solid 6 out of 10 nowadays, isn't he? Which is still better than average.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, we'll come to you sort of a 2-in-1 here with the other midfielders, Jones and Elliott. Different players, different performances. I think Jones especially has split opinions today. A lot of people saying he was a load of crap. A lot of people saying he had a really good performance. So we'll come to you for the deciding vote.
I'll sit in the middle. I don't think he was exceptional. It definitely wasn't his worst game for Liverpool. The one thing he does that annoys me is he always looks for a shot first. He never looks for the pass. Like every time he gets the ball on the edge of the box, he's always looking to the goal. And, I feel like you can do that when you're Felipe Coutinho or Messi, but he's Curtis Jones, he should be passing the ball off, trying to find, especially in the situations that he finds himself. You know, there was one time where he cut inside on his right foot and it was open for him, and it went a bit, he let it go a bit too far. I don't mind him taking that shot. That's a perfectly fine shot for him to take. He's created the space himself. But it does annoy me when he is in the edge of the box and he's always looking to shoot when he's got, 3 or 4 opposition players around him. He also massively needs to work on keeping the ball. I find a lot when I watch him, he gives it away like needlessly almost. And he gets bullied a lot off the ball, which I've noticed. I do think he needs to massively bulk up. I know we talked about Tyler Morton. I think Jones needs to bulk up a lot, and I think he also needs to decide what position he's going to be playing in this Liverpool side, because at times it feels like he wants to be an 8. It feels like he wants to, be a 10. Like, you got to choose to be something, and it seems like he's in the crossroads of 3 or 4 positions, and he's trying to play every single position. Like, I know what Harvey Elliott's going to do. I know what his game is. His game is to almost be a winger on that right-hand side, but drop deep. Like, he's there to link up with the right-hand side. He's there to, make mazy runs in the box. He's not going to be in it from 30 yards out. Whereas Jones, I feel like I just don't know what he wants to do himself. Pre-season's going to be huge for Jones. If we either decide to loan him out or if he stays in the squad, I think we keep Elliott in the squad. I can't see him being loaned out. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain's gone. If he didn't start this game, he's never starting again for Liverpool. So yeah, I'd personally loan him out, depending on what his preseason if he's comes back on preseason, he's bigger, he knows his position in preseason. He's doing well, then I'd think about keeping him around, because he's a decent backup, but he's not a starter, and he can play on that left hand side as well. So yeah, but on the performances today, I think Elliott played better. I think it was that change for Elliott was always going to happen no matter what score we were up. It seemed like Klopp just wanted to give him a few 60 minutes, 70 minutes, which he did, and he brought him off. And I know Matty's been a massive advocate of this, saying, Curtis Jones is getting more minutes than Elliott. I still think Klopp's nurturing Elliott back to full fitness, if I'm being honest. And, yes, it happened months ago, but he hadn't played any game time for 6 months, and you can't just throw somebody into a Premier League, Champions League title race when, you have to relearn to kick a ball, basically. So, yeah, but on the game, I was more impressed with Elliott, but I think Curtis Jones did an okay job.
We'll speak more about Harvey in a second, but Drew, that assessment of Curtis Jones in that game, do you agree?
Yeah, I think Charlie hit the nail on the head where it's like we don't really know what he's best at, or like he keeps trying these different roles, and I think that's him trying to break into the team wherever possible. It almost seems like he's just doing whatever, like thinking that shooting first, scoring the goals is going to get him in the side. It looks like he's trying to find a way to force his name into the team, but ultimately it might be where his peak is a squad player. I don't see, if we lose Ox in the off season, I think that midfield's probably our area of where we need to strengthen. And if we're going to get another world-class midfielder, I don't see him breaking into the team in the next season or two. Maybe if there's injury crisis again around the midfield, he gets a chance. But I don't think he was absolutely terrible, but he seems to draw a lot of pressure on him when he gets the ball. He doesn't always pass right away. He doesn't link up the best. I think we've been excited by him in the past when he's not afraid to take on a man, but that's not always the right decision. It doesn't look like he has that right combination at this point where he's making the right decisions, whether to pass it right away or take on his man or shoot or play someone in. So he probably needs more games, and maybe we talked about it on this stream alone could give him that opportunity. But he's definitely not in the first team, at least for this season or next season.
Speaking of not playing many games, Harvey Elliott, of course, James, I don't think he's featured for the first team since Nottingham Forest, which was before the international break in the FA Cup. Pretty decent considering in this game for those 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I think Charlie got it right. I think Klopp's nursing him back to fitness. I think Harvey Elliott is probably Harvey Elliott's worst enemy when it comes to playing football. I think he'd push himself too far and he'd do himself another injury. I think someone like Klopp's like, well, I'm just going to take you out the firing line and drop you in when I think it's right, and I'm going to let you train how I think it's right. So he played well. He got himself in some good positions. I don't think he was as dynamic as he was before he got injured, but you wouldn't expect him to be. You'd expect him to just be doing the right things and making good runs and getting in space. And he got in space. He found space without hogging the areas where Salah would be. And that's what was good, because that's the position he wants. He wants to be in between Trent and Salah. And I don't think he was in either of their normal positions. So that could be a very positive thing looking forward into next season, because where he normally picked up the ball was pretty much in between the space that two of them play. So quite happy.
And the last sort of person who hasn't played much football but was included, Charlie, was Takumi Minamino, and you shared that very impressive stat with us, which I'm not sure many people would have known about. Apart from the goal, a pretty quiet night from him. A few flashes. A couple of times he spun his defender a little bit, but other times his passing was a little bit frustrating. And it's the same old story. He can kind of disappear into a game. Though. Oh no, absolutely.
What a finish!
Do you know who it reminded me of? The finish, Aguero. It was very Aguero-esque the way he hit it in the top of the net. Look, we haven't had much to get excited about Takumi Minamino this season, but he's becoming the new Divock Origi. When he plays, he performs. There hasn't been a game this season where he hasn't contributed in some way to a win. And I do think in recent games, there's been times where I thought, why hasn't Minamino come on? He can pop up and have a goal, very, very Jota-like. And I still don't think you're getting a better backup than him. Unless you want to pay something ridiculous like 40 million for someone who isn't going to want to sit on the bench. And I think I'm going to say it's an issue that we've got. It's an absolutely amazing issue that we have, that all of our bench players are breaking through to the first team. And, we've got 5 players battling it out now. But we sort of need someone who's going to be all right to just chill on the bench and come in for League Cup matches, come in for early round FA Cup matches, and always have a goal in them. And we didn't see that with the first season of Takumi Minamino, but this season he has proved that he's more than good enough to be a Liverpool squad player. Will he ever be good enough to be a Liverpool first team player? No, probably not. Is he maybe pushing the move and he's just being a bit nicer about it and doesn't want to, publicly, because there's been rumours that Leeds have been interested in him, but I don't think he goes if Leeds get relegated. So, I'd keep him. I like him. He comes on and he scores goals, and that's something you need. And we need a League Cup destroyer, because we don't want to be playing Luis Diaz against, Peterborough in the second round or third round of the League Cup, wherever you come in, or fourth round. But yeah, I rate him. I thought he did good again. His finish was good. I think not many of our Liverpool players scored that with the angle it was in.
Klopp's really clever as well, though, isn't he? Because when he mentioned Takumi Minamino, he didn't say Minamino. He said Mr. League and FA Cup when he was referring to him. That's got to be a confidence builder. That he's referring to him as, you have won these cups and you're coming in to help us It's little things like that Klopp does that I just think are really clever.
Thank you to everybody who is tuning in. Oh, sorry. To everybody who is tuning in and has been watching, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe for all Liverpool content. Sam has asked, is Tchouaméni going to Liverpool? Well, we will cover that tomorrow on Transfer Central, so make sure that you subscribe and stick around.
Go check the Twitter account if you want to see an early preview of it.
I don't know if that's a purposeful spelling mistake or not, but I like it. Man of the match to finish on a high. Charlie, who is your man of the match?
I'm gonna give it to someone I don't think many people maybe would suspect. I'm gonna give it to Kostas Tsimikas. I thought he had a great game today. His delivery was on point. He probably should have had 3 or 4 assists. And he got an assist for the Joel Matip goal. Another great performance by Tsimikas, and after being the goal to seal the FA Cup for us, it's another great game for him, and more proof that he's more than good enough to not just challenge Robbo, but maybe push his position to be a starter in the future.
So one man of the match for Kostas Tsimikas. Drew, who are you going for?
Yeah, Charlie took it right out of my mouth. Kostas Tsimikas. I felt like for the whole game, he was probably our best performer. I think other players had moments in the game that greatly affected it. Minamino and Matip coming up big, but I felt like Kostas was the only one throughout the game delivering quality, from his crosses, his corners, and he had a few defensive moments. I think towards the end of the game when he just muscled out a Southampton attacker to get his head on the ball, to get it back to Allison, like little things like that to break up play was just excellent. I don't think it was a game where anyone grabbed it by the throat. So Tsimikas for me was the most constant throughout the match.
So 2 for Kostas Tsimikas. James, is it a clean sweep?
Nope. I'm going Canate. I think we need to at some point start to talk about how good this guy is. He is so strong, it is ridiculous. In the FA Cup final, he pushed Kante back 5 years just when he brushed him off the ball. And a couple of times tonight, he's ridiculously strong, good in the air, incredibly quick. If you were building a centre-back in FIFA and you were picking all the attributes, you would pretty much build Canate, wouldn't you? He is going to be something very, very special if he carries on his development. And if he can get his distribution up to Virgil level, then you've got yourself a world-leading centre-back. And I think he's got the absolute best education between Matip and Virgil van Dijk. And for me, he was head and shoulders because I didn't worry about him once.
Yeah, so 2 man of the match awards to Tsimikas and 1 from James to Canate, but a few in the chat agreeing with you as well. Hyler and Mike History Channel saying Canate. But that will conclude our post-match reaction for today's game. It's all down to the final day. It's a miracle we're hoping for, but miracles are there to be had, essentially. So we'll see what happens.
Coutinho, come on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that could make themselves very popular again in the city of Liverpool and around the world. So let's just hope and see what happens. We've done our job. We now go back to Anfield to take on Wolves, and we'll have build up for that as the week progresses. But Charlie, Drew, James, thank you very much for joining me. Everybody in the comments, thank you very much for getting involved, and everybody watching, thank you very much for doing so. This has been the LFC Transfer Room post-match reaction. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.